Another video, so it looked like the NBA and the WNBA has launched.
Alright, so the NBA and WNBA just kicked off this huge internal investigation, and people are absolutely losing it. This isn't just about a few missed calls or bad refs anymore. We're talking about sketchy injury reports, weird betting patterns, and honestly, how Caitlin Clark was treated all season long. The league actually sent out these crazy memos to all 30 teams, and the fallout could be massive. This whole thing could expose some deep corruption that nobody even imagined. Seriously, do you think Caitlin Clark had a bounty on her head this season? Because, let's be real, we should have seen this coming. All the signs were there. Those weird injury reports, the betting irregularities, players getting hurt in strange ways, and just how certain athletes were being handled. Now that the NBA has officially launched this investigation into themselves, the WNBA is about to get absolutely cooked, and not just a little bit. We're talking fully investigated, every single stone turned over, medium well done type of situation.
Wait, I am here to tell you it's about to go down for real because the NBA has launched an internal investigation into the league, and boy, oh.
Okay, so this memo that got sent to all 30 NBA teams, it's wild. ESPN actually got their hands on it, and what's inside is exactly as serious as you'd imagine. The league is diving deep into their rules for injury reporting, how they train their staff, and seriously beefing up their monitoring to spot any weird betting activity. That last part though, that's the real kicker. They're not just looking at one bad incident, they're building whole new systems to catch patterns of suspicious stuff across the entire league and all its affiliate organizations. Now let's be super clear about what affiliate organizations actually means. The WNBA is directly tied to the NBA, they share owners, management, everything. So when the NBA says they're investigating their affiliate leagues, they are absolutely talking about the WNBA. And honestly, if you watch the WNBA at all this past season, you know exactly why that's a huge problem. The injury situation was just completely out of control. Players were getting hurt way more often than usual. Big stars were missing games, and those injury reports? Super inconsistent, often delayed. And guess who was right in the middle of all that? Yep, Caitlin Clark.
I'm telling you, bro, this investigation is about to catapult into something major. And I keep telling y'all this, and I have to retell y'all this. The WNBA is going to be violated sooner rather than later over the civil rights and the treatment of Caitlin Clark.
Look, how Clark was treated this season was just insane, unlike anything we've ever seen in women's pro basketball. The physical stuff she dealt with, it went way past normal competitive play. I mean, players were absolutely targeting her. Elbows, body checks, dangerous moves that honestly just went unpunished by the refs most of the time. She got poked in the eye like multiple times. She was constantly getting knocked down. Opponents were allowed to play her with an aggression level that would have been flagrant fouls for anyone else. The refereeing was so incredibly inconsistent that fans even started making compilation videos, just showing everyone the blatant double standard.
Caitlin Clark, yes, she was targeted, similar to bounty. That's what I truly believe. I believe Caitlin Clark had a bounty on her. Had to have, bro. The way these players was attacking her, the way the referees was not calling certain fouls against certain players, throwing them out of the game, it is looking very bounty-ish.
So this NBA and WNBA investigation, looking into injury reports and all this betting corruption, is going to expose things that will absolutely shock everyone. Caitlin Clark's treatment this season might finally start to make sense once we find out what was really going on behind the scene. Honestly, this is so much bigger than just basketball. This is about the integrity of the game, player safety, and whether the games we're all watching are even real. Alright, but here's where things get really suspicious. We're talking about betting markets around WNBA games and these wild patterns involving Caitlin Clark's performance. Her over-under stats would see huge betting action right before games where she'd end up hurt or playing limited minutes because of all the physical punishment she took. That's not a coincidence, plain and simple. That pattern totally screams that people had information they shouldn't have had, or that game outcomes were being influenced to benefit certain betting groups. The NBA memo even mentions the Terry Rozier situation from last year. He had unusual bets on his underperformance in a game where he mysteriously played limited minutes. They caught that because it was through legal channels. But here's the kicker. The memo actually admits they think there's way more corruption happening that they haven't even found yet. They're basically saying out loud that they believe there's deeper corruption. That's a massive admission from a major sports league. And get this, the memo also talks about proposition bets. You know, prop bets on individual player performance. They're saying those need extra scrutiny. Prop bets are where you bet on specific stats, like how many points a player scores or rebound. These are super easy to manipulate because you don't need to fix a whole game. You just need to influence one player's performance. So, whose performance was the most bet on in WNBA history? Yep, Caitlin Clark. Her popularity opened up this whole new betting market that women's basketball had never seen before. All these casual fans who never bet on the WNBA were suddenly putting money on her points, assists, threes. That huge wave of betting created massive opportunities for people with inside info or the ability to sway outcomes. Think about it. If you knew the refs weren't going to protect Clark or that teams were being told to target her, you could make a fortune betting on her to underperform. The injury reporting part is also super critical here. The NBA memo says they're reviewing how injuries are disclosed to make sure the rules are appropriate. That's code for they know injury reports have been messed with or held back to help betting interest. In the WNBA this season, injury reports were famously vague. Players would be questionable with no details. Game time decisions came out at the very last second, and with Clark, there were several times she was clearly hurt, but her team downplayed it or just didn't report it accurately. Why would teams do that? Because accurate injury info moves betting lines dramatically. If everyone knows a star is hurt, the odds change. But if that info is kept quiet or dropped at the last second, it creates opportunities for insiders to bet before the lines adjust. Plus, the memo acknowledges players need protection from better harassment, and guess who dealt with exactly that? Clark. Fans were in her DMs, commenting on her posts, even approaching her in public, asking about her health before it was public. The league did nothing. They didn't boost security. They didn't condemn the harassment. They just left her totally exposed. And that failure, it's gonna be ripped apart. The memo even mentions using AI and other tools to watch social media and pull data from betting operators. Why? Because a lot of this shady stuff pops up on social media first. Insiders can't help but brag. Betting operators see weird money movement. Social media shows players saying things that don't match official statements. Put it all together, and patterns of corruption just emerge. Now, Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, was apparently called to testify before Congress about all of this. Halloween was the deadline, and since then, total silence. That silence, my friends, is deafening. When Congress calls you in about potential corruption in your league, and you go dark afterward, it tells you the situation is even worse than anyone publicly knows. They're probably negotiating, strategizing, trying to figure out how to handle what's coming. If Silver gets pushed out or faces huge consequences, the WNBA is in massive trouble. He's been the driving force keeping it alive, pushing its growth. He got that huge media rights deal. He convinced NBA owners to invest. He tied the leagues together in a way that actually helped the women's game. Without him, we're left with Kathy Engelbert running the WNBA. And honestly, she's repeatedly shown she doesn't have the vision or competence to lead through this kind of crisis. Engelbert's handling of the Clark situation all season? A total masterclass in incompetence. She should have immediately addressed the targeting and physical play. She should have made it crystal clear that star players would be protected and that rules would be consistently enforced. Instead, she just stayed silent while Clark got beat up night after night. She didn't defend her biggest star. She didn't protect the player who was single-handedly bringing unprecedented attention and money to the league. That leadership failure is exactly why fans have been calling for her resignation for months. This investigation is going to uncover some seriously uncomfortable stuff. We're going to find out about financial ties between team personnel and betting operators. We're going to see text messages and internal comms showing people knew about injuries before they were public. We're even going to discover that some of the violence against Clark wasn't just competitive fire, it was calculated, maybe even incentivized. This corruption is going to be exposed, layer by layer, and it's going to be ugly. Just think about all those suspicious injuries this season. Players perfectly healthy one day, mysteriously out the next. Star players suddenly having off nights after heavy bets on their under. Games where the officiating was so biased it looked like refs were trying to influence outcomes. All of that is getting looked at. All of it will be questioned. And some of it, it's going to be proven just as corrupt as it looked in real time. There's also a major civil rights angle here, especially with how Clark was treated. When a white superstar is targeted with physical violence, that largely goes unpunished, while the players who do it face minimal consequence. That raises serious questions about league priorities and potential discrimination. The Wall Street Journal already did an investigation into civil rights violations in Clark's treatment. Now, with an official internal investigation, those allegations are going to be taken seriously in a way they never were before. There's a real chance people could go to jail over this. Betting-related corruption in sports is a federal crime. If investigators find proof that players, coaches, staff, or league officials manipulated outcomes or shared inside info for betting, those are federal charges. We saw it with Tim Donaghy, the NBA ref who went to prison for betting on games he officiated. This could be that scandal, but times 10 if they find what a lot of people suspect is there. The memo's mention of protecting players from better harassment is super relevant to Clark's experience. She literally faced death threats on social media. People were showing up at her hotel. Bettors who lost money on her performances were sending her menacing messages. And the league? They did absolutely nothing to deal with it. No extra security. No public statements condemning the harassment. They just left her completely exposed to dangers no athlete should have to face. That failure is going to be heavily scrutinized. The timing of this whole investigation is really interesting too, because the WNBA season just wrapped up. All the data is fresh. All those suspicious patterns are recent enough that evidence hasn't vanished. People's memories are clear about what happened. If investigators want to build cases, this is the perfect time. The fact that the league is moving this fast tells me they know how bad this looks, and they want to get ahead of it before more info leaks or federal investigators jump in on their own. Fans have been screaming for months that something wasn't right this season. Clark's physical targeting was too consistent across different teams to be an accident. The refereeing inconsistencies were too blatant to be just bad call. The injury report irregularities were too frequent to be simple administrative errors, and now we're finding out that league officials apparently agree something was wrong. That validation is huge because it means this wasn't just paranoid fans seeing things. The patterns were real and they are absolutely being investigated. This also has huge international implications. Sports betting is global, right? American leagues partner with betting operators worldwide. If corruption pops up in the NBA and WNBA, it impacts betting markets everywhere. Other countries will want answers about whether their citizens were defrauded by manipulated games. International law enforcement could get involved. This could honestly turn into a diplomatic issue, depending on how deep the corruption goes and who's involved. The players themselves are going to be in incredibly awkward positions. Some probably knew what was going on but kept quiet out of fear, or for their own careers. Others were victims without even realizing it. Clark clearly falls into that victim category, but other players are going to have to answer some tough questions about what they knew. Locker rooms are going to be super tense when players realize some teammates might have been involved in schemes that stained everyone's integrity. Coaches are going to face scrutiny too. Did they know about betting motivations behind certain game plans? Were they pressured by management to make decisions that benefited bettors instead of just trying to win? Did they notice weird injury reports but stay silent? This investigation is going to ask all those questions, and the answers won't be comfortable for a lot of people who thought they were safe just because they weren't placing bets themselves. Sponsors and media partners for both leagues, they are watching this like hawks. They put billions of dollars into these leagues, assuming they were supporting fair competition. If that legitimacy is compromised, if games were manipulated by betting corruption, those sponsors are going to want their money back or their contracts torn up. The financial fallout could be catastrophic, especially for the WNBA, which operates on much thinner margins. Looking ahead, this investigation is going to take months, maybe even years, to fully unfold. They're building monitoring systems with AI and comprehensive data analysis. That's not a quick fix. They're reviewing policies, procedures, interviewing personnel, digging through communication. This is a massive undertaking, and it tells me they're bracing for huge revelations and fundamental changes. The leagues we see on the other side of this, they're going to look very, very different from what we have now. And for Caitlin Clark specifically, this investigation might finally give us answers about why her season went down the way it did, why she faced that wild physical targeting, why the refs let it happen, why the league office was silent, why her injury reports were so strange. She absolutely deserves those answers. She deserves to know if her health and safety were sacrificed for betting interests. And she deserves justice if it turns out people made money from schemes that put her in danger. The scariest part of all this is that we're probably only seeing the very tip of the iceberg. The memo admits they think there's more corruption than they've found. That means what we know right now is just the beginning. As the investigation keeps going and more comes out, we're going to discover things that make the current revelations look minor. The full scale of this corruption could be so huge that it fundamentally changes how we view professional basketball forever.